Well, they've just taken a courtroom break in the FTC versus Microsoft case, which is perfect timing. Maybe they know that we go live with the GeForce Now Thursday chat at 10 p.m. UK time. I think the judge knew and decided to adjourn the court. We adjourn the court. It's been absolutely fascinating listening to the various lawyers challenging and having a look behind the curtain of gaming, the gaming business and the console business and stuff for those that have been listening. But we've got much more than that to discuss today on GeForce Now Thursday chat. I hope you're good. I hope you're well. On that basis, buckle up, people. It's time to roll the titles. Yokoso, 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 arigato gozaimasu! Welcome to the GeForce Now Thursday chat. I hope you're good. I hope you are well, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, wow, it's GeForce Now Thursday already. Who'd believe it? I don't know. Maybe it's an age thing, but life is rushing by right now. It's crazy. As ever, we're going to have all the latest, the GeForce Now news. We've got Clive ready in the studio. Clive, are you ready in the studio? Yes, good. We've got Clive ready in the studio with all the breakdown of 10 games this week. 10 games arriving on the GeForce Now platform. And equally, we're going to be talking about some lovely little bombshells, revelations, reveals, exclamations, call them what you are, from the FTC versus Microsoft case, which is going on right now. Well, not right now because they're having an adjournment. They're having a little break. But loads of fascinating things coming out of that hearing. Now, much of them, and the reason I'm mentioning it here, and I will be talking about it on Monday, of course. The reason I'm mentioning it here is much of it relates, oddly enough, to GeForce Now. There's some very interesting statements about GeForce Now, Xbox/Microsoft, but Xbox view of GeForce Now back then, and how, strangely, it's changed now. Now they need GeForce Now, actually, to kind of help their case. Their attitude to GeForce Now has dramatically changed. And we'll be looking at all of that. As ever, do me the massive favor. Let me know what games you've been playing in the chat and all of that, as I love to know. Anything you want to discuss, any questions you might have or curiosities, or raise the issues. All of those, we're going to be talking about all of it. But as I say, we're going to get right into the meat and potatoes of all the games that have come to the GeForce Now platform this week. I want to also hear your opinion on those games. 10 games. We will go through them. We'll look at them. We'll break them down. But I want to know your thoughts. Are there games that are of interest to you? You think it's just another disappointment? Are you just holding out for the big games, as they were? Or there's some interesting gems in there. So let me know once we go through the breakdown of all those games. I think there's some interesting games in there. Before we do that, before we join Clive in the new studio, let's check out who's in the house. Or, as the case may be, who's in the garden? It's Jerome. Hello, Jerome. Good to see you. He's the grass cut ready for gaming news. That's what I like to see. My garden is coming along. I found a pond. I'll tell you this. I found a pond in my garden. That's how long it's been since I even bothered to look. I discovered a pond in my garden. I've been here 8 years and I had no idea. A pond in my garden. Tell you how much of a gardener I've been for the last 8 years. Where is the FTC hearing? Fancy watching it, lol. It's not available to watch, but and FTC and The Verge is sort of running an up to the minute breakdown, which we'll look at because it's a lot quicker for me to do it that way than sort of summarize the notes I've made. So the verge of running a breakdown, like an update, a minute by minute update of it, but it's actually from the court. It's a direct zoom from the court, audio only. Somebody did send it to me on Twitter, and I jumped on. Very interesting anyway. Neil, good to see you. Neil's been playing Portal 2 and Outward. Are you enjoying Outward? Let me know. Internet of Games, I know he's been listening to the Microsoft FTC, or FTC Microsoft case. All Atari Recharge games. Good for you, Jerome. Skinny and Franco and Atari 50. Excellent. Liam, how are you? Good to see you, ladies and gentlemen. Right, well, before we get into the meat and potatoes of what they've been saying, what Microsoft have been saying about NVIDIA GeForce Now behind their back and to their face, as it were, we're going to jump to Clive in the news studio. Clive, are you ready in the news studio? Yeah? Okay, so it's over to Clive. Let's get a summary of all those 10 incredible games. You be the judge. Coming to NVIDIA GeForce this week. Quite a lot of games for 1 week. But is it... Well, I'll leave Clive to ask you the question at the end. Thanks, Clive. So we've got 10 games arriving on the platform. So without further ado, let's check them out. Kicking things off this week, we have Aliens Dark Descent. It's a freshly released, hyper-tense, real-time tactics game with a light sprinkling of strategy, which takes a more tactical approach to xenomorph blasting. The game promises a powerful generator of gnawing tension and tough tactical decisions, falling just a script passed away from an all-timer. The game takes place on Leith, a xenomorph-infested moon owned by the Wayland Yutani, and the story kicks off with the crash landing of the colonial marine frigate USS Otago. The complex narrative of the game unfolds in a story-driven prologue that doubles as a tutorial, which then segues into a series of missions. However, despite the solid cinematic foundation of the game, the script lacks certain subtleties and wit, offering forced conflicts and awkward dialogue. Once stranded on Leith, the stories you create more than compensate for the narrative shortcoming. Each mission sees you dispatch a 4-person team of Marines to locations around Lethe, either to improve your situation or investigate why the moon is overrun with bugs. The missions are fraught with tension and nail-biting gunfights that truly encapsulate the essence of the Aliens franchise. With the xenomorphs inches away, your squad, huddled at the end of a narrow corridor, burns through ammo to suppress the aliens' advance, while working on hacking a control panel to open the door behind them. The situation is dire, and the tension palpable as your Marines struggle to survive. All in all, Dark Descent is a thrilling addition to the realm of strategy and tactics games, a must-play for any fan of the franchise, and a strong contender for those interested in this particular genre. Brand new release this week is Trepang 2, a first-person shooter video game by Trepang Studios and published by Team 17. In Trepang 2, players take control of a newly enhanced super soldier who is on a mission to escape from the heavily guarded Black Site. The game features fast-paced, action-packed gameplay that is heavily inspired by classic FPS games like Fear and Max Payne. Players can use a variety of weapons and abilities to fight their way through the game's enemies. They can also use the environment to their advantage, such as using cover to avoid enemy fire or using explosives to create openings. Trepang 2 features a single-player campaign mode as well as a multiplayer mode, and the multiplayer mode allows players to team up with friends or compete against other players in a variety of different modes. Trepang 2 has received reasonably positive reviews from critics. The game has been praised for its fast-paced gameplay, challenging difficulty, and atmospheric visuals. Forever Skies plunges you into the heart of a ravaged world where the remnants of humanity cling to the existence after a cataclysmic ecological disaster. You are cast into a first-person post-apocalyptic survival adventure where the Earth, as we know it, is but a distant memory. The once familiar landscapes are now obscured by a colossal layer of lethal dust, a stark testament to the catastrophe that once unfolded. As a beacon of hope in this desolate world, you command an advanced airship, your mobile sanctuary in the skies. This high-tech haven is more than just a shelter. It's a fully customizable base, a state-of-the-art workshop, a cutting-edge laboratory, and your means of navigating the deadly expanse below. You'll steer this marvel of technology through the ghostly ruins of our civilization towards enigmatic anomalies that pepper the landscape. In the face of relentless challenges, you'll become an expert in resource management, extracting and gathering materials from the wasteland to reinforce your airship's hull, maintain its integrity, and develop unique upgrades. Your mission is not only survival, but also the search for elusive viral pathogens, the only hope to cure a mysterious illness that threatens what remains of life. Dive into this action survival game and face the haunting echoes of the past and perhaps change the course of the future. Next, we have another Xbox PC game, and just as last week we had Age of Empires 4. Following hot on the heels of last week's Xbox PC game, we now have Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition, which revitalizes the classic RTS game, breathing new life into an experience that many gamers remember fondly. A cherished title in the strategy genre, Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition beautifully remasters the original game while preserving the essence that made it a fan favorite. The Definitive Edition enhances the visuals, audio, and gameplay of the original Age of Empires 3, bringing it closer to the standards of contemporary gaming. The game features stunning 4K Ultra HD graphics and a fully remastered soundtrack, immersing players into the world of exploration and conquest like never before. Players take on the role of a European power between the 15th and 19th centuries, seeking to explore and colonize the Americas. With 14 different civilizations to play, each with unique units, technologies, and home city improvements, the game offers a wealth of strategic replayability. Whether you're a seasoned veteran of the original game or a newcomer to the series, Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition offers an engaging and enriched real-time strategy experience. AVA Global is a free-to-play, massively multiplayer online first-person shooter developed by NeoWiz Games. The game was first released in South Korea in 2007 and has since been released in other countries around the world. Think poor man's CSGO. AVA Global features a variety of game modes, including Deathmatch, Team Deathmatch, Capture the Flag, and Demolition. Players can choose from 3 different classes, whether it's a point man, rifleman, and sniper. Each class has its own unique abilities and weapons. The game is set in a futuristic world where 2 factions, the European Union and the new Russian forces, interesting, are engaged in a global conflict. Players can choose to fight for either side. AVA Global has received mixed reviews from critics, and some have praised the game's fast-paced action and variety of game modes. However, others have criticised the game's graphics and lack of innovation. Overall, AVA Global is a solid FPS game that offers a variety of gameplay options. However, it may not be the best choice for players who are looking for a graphically stunning or innovative experience. Bloons TD6 next, one of my son's favourites. It's a tower defence game developed by Ninja Kiwi. It is the 6th instalment in the Bloons TD series and was released way back in 2018. The objective of Bloons TD6 is to prevent a horde of balloons from reaching the end of a track by using monkeys and other towers to pop them. Players can choose a variety of towers, each with its own unique abilities. They can also upgrade their towers to make them more powerful. The game features a variety of game modes, including a story mode, a challenge mode, and a free play mode. It's a challenging and rewarding game that offers a lot of replay value, and I mean a lot of replay value. The game's variety of towers and game modes keep things fresh, and the difficulty curve is well balanced. If you're a fan of tower defense games, then Bloons TD6 is a must play. And as the screen gets more and more hectic and crazy, you're going to be grateful you've got GeForce Now Ultimate on this one. Conqueror's Blade, another free-to-play, massively multiplayer online real-time tactics game developed by Booming Games. It's set in a medieval world where players can choose to fight for one of 6 factions: the Western Roman Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, the Abbasid Caliphate, the Song Empire, or the Mongolian Khanate. Players can create their own unique character, customize their appearance, weapons and armor, and they can join battles with other players, either in small-scale skirmishes or large-scale sieges. Conqueror's Blade features a deep and complex combat system that allows players to use a variety of weapons and skills to defeat their enemies. In addition to the PvP battles, Conqueror's Blade also features a number of PvE activities, such as exploring the world, completing quests, and fighting against AI-controlled enemies. Players can build their own strongholds and train their own troops. It's a challenging and rewarding game that offers a unique blend of PvP and PvE gameplay. The game's deep combat system and strategic gameplay make it a must-play for fans of real-time tactics games. Layers of Fear is a psychological horror game from 2016. The game puts players in the role of a nameless painter who is struggling with his sanity. As the game progresses, the player's sanity deteriorates and the environment around them becomes increasingly distorted. The player must explore the painter's mansion and solve puzzles in order to progress. They must also be careful not to succumb to their own madness. Layers of Fear is a first-person game that uses a variety of techniques to create a sense of atmosphere and dread. The game's visuals are constantly shifting and changing, and the player is never sure what they can trust. The game also features a number of jump scares, which can be quite effective in unsettling the player. Overall, it's received positive reviews from critics who've praised the game's atmosphere, visuals, and gameplay. Park Beyond is a theme park construction and management simulator developed by Limbic Entertainment in 2022. Players take on the role of a visioneer, a creative force behind a series of amusement parks. Players can let their imagination off the leash to build wild loops and hoops for a roller coaster like no other to attract thrill-seeking teens, research exciting flat rides to appeal to adults, or pop down cheery, adorable flat rides for families. But players can also take things to the next level with unbelievable modules that can add unique pizzazz to their park. Park Beyond features a story-driven campaign mode that sees players build new parks and revive old ones. The campaign is full of challenges and obstacles, but it also offers plenty of opportunities for creativity. Players can also build their own parks in a sandbox mode, where they can let their imaginations run wild. And finally, we have Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Extraction, the cooperative multiplayer tactical shooter video game developed by Ubisoft Montreal. It's a spin-off of Rainbow Six Siege and was released last year in January, but now finally comes to Steam, having already been available via Ubisoft Connect. Basically, in Extraction, players take control of a team of 3 operators from Rainbow Six Siege roster, and they must infiltrate an alien-infested location known as an incursion to complete objectives such as collecting samples, extracting materials from computers, and gathering intel. The location of the objectives and the placement of enemies are procedurally generated, meaning that each incursion is very different. Players can choose from a variety of operators, each with their own unique abilities and weapons, and as players progress through the game, they'll earn XP, unlock new operators, weapons, and gadgets. And they can also upgrade their operators' abilities and weapons. It's a challenging game that requires teamwork and communication. Players must work together to survive these incursions and complete the objective. The game also features a permadeath system, meaning that operators who are downed in an incursion are lost permanently. Extraction received mixed reviews from critics on its release. Some have praised the game's cooperative gameplay and challenging difficulty. Others have criticized the game's lack of innovation and repetitive gameplay. But overall, I really quite enjoy the game. It's a solid cooperative multiplayer tactical shooter that offers a challenging and rewarding experience. So there you go. That's the wrap-up of the 10 games coming to GeForce Now platform this week. Are any of those of interest to you? Or is it quantity over quality? Let us know in the chat. And on that note, it's back to Clive in the studio. Clive, it's back to you. Thanks, Clive. Much appreciated. Well, there you go. There at the breakdown of the 10 games that are coming to GeForce Now this week, including, of course, Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition. A shout out to my son who edited the video this week. He asked me whether he could edit the video. Well, he edited half of it. He got bored of me because I make so many mistakes in the voiceover. It's very frustrating. So he got bored halfway through. But shout out to him for doing it. It's a big help having someone to help edit your videos. So there you go. But anyway, that's enough of that. Let us know which of those games pique your interest. Is it a bit meh, 10 games? I mean, that seems quite a lot, isn't it? I knew we had quite a few, we had over 20 games coming in June, and it's like 10 of them have come in 1 week. And Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition. Were you expecting other Microsoft games this week or more Microsoft PC games this week? Let me know in the chat. I want to know your thoughts about that selection. There's some interesting games on there, certainly, and some free games. Conqueror's Blade looks very interesting, free to play. Might have a little dibble-dabble in that one. Why not? But anyway, let me know down in the chat. And of course, while I remember, let's do the housekeeping, ladies and gentlemen. Only 5 likes. There were 10 people watching a little earlier. So come on, hit those likes because I like it. YouTube likes it. And it helps people like you find amazing content like this. I'm doing this every week for you guys. Let's share the love. And if you are new here, arigata gozaimasu, hit that subscribe button, toggle that notification bell. And that way you'll know when I go live with content just like this. Anyway, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Right, why don't we have a quick look at, before we get into, I've got the help of ChatGPT today to summarize some of the references made to cloud gaming and NVIDIA and GeForce Now. But before that, let's check out Steam because they usually have a sale. See if there's anything of interest on there related to GeForce Now. So here we are on the Steam page. Now, Hunter Call of the Wild, I think, was one of the games that was meant to be free on Epic Games Store. I'm not sure whether it was and then it got pulled or it's ended. But if you are looking for why would you shoot kangaroo? I suppose, yeah, sometimes they have to do a kangaroo culling, don't they? In Australia, there was a Australian horror movie involving kangaroo culling. Anyway, enough of that. The Hunter Call of the Wild, £3.99. Bargain, ladies and gentlemen. Bargain. Forever Skies, of course, one of the releases today. GeForce recommended. So why don't we... is at... What was that price again? Past it. Let's make it relevant. About see what the sales are like quickly. There's a publisher sale, Gearbox. Any of the Risk of Rain 2. Oh, Risk of Rain 2. That was a great game on Stadia. Think of any of those are available on GeForce Now. Penn and Teller. I was trying to look at the Epic Game Store as well. Does anybody know what the Epic Game Store this week, the free game this week is? Last week, of course, it was free. It'd be good if I could spell. Someone told me, oh, it was that weird the Dungeons of Nebulurca or Lobiuk, whatever it was. I seem to remember I saw an article about it. I wish there was a... Is it me or is there not an easy way to find what the free giveaway on Epic Game Store is. Surely it should be front and center. Am I being silly Billy? Madden, Immortals Phoenix, $9.99. Now that's a bargain and a half. Is that what it's like on? Here we are. So look, Call of the Wild. I told you, Call of the Wild. Hunter Call of the Wild is free now on Epic Game Store. And coming soon, so next week, it's the Dungeon of Nahulbuke, which I seem to remember was mentioned for, was going to be a Stadia title. Well, it'll be available on Stadia. Now, can you play the Hunter Call of the Wild on Steam, on GeForce Now via Epic? That'd be interesting to know. But those are the games worth looking at. Those are the sales, all of that. Neil says here, free games free apparently. The Hunter Call of the Wild. Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms and Wolfgar's Legends of Renown pack. There we are. Thanks for the update there. Awesome. Right, before we jump into the FTC and Microsoft case and things related to GeForce Now, which we will do. No spoilers yet. Yes, a pond. Completely gaming related. Yes, a pond. The week before, I discovered a water feature in the different corner. I think I mentioned it. A fountain, which to my real sort of, I'm very proud, having discovered it, dug it out. I found the wires that connected it all up. I found the pump. It didn't work. I took the pump apart. I cleaned out all the silt and mud. Put the pump back. Bear in mind, this thing has probably not been used for 10 years. Put it all back. Connected it up. Bingo. I've now got a fountain I didn't even know I had in the garden. And then last weekend, yes, I was clearing the back of the garden where they've paved over with pavement. And just behind that, there was a line of concrete that seemed to be put down there on purpose. It was sort of knobbly. It was like fake rock concrete. Yeah, as though sort of they tried to make it look like fake rock. But it was very linear and very precise. And I thought they've done that for a reason. And I started digging beyond it. And I found a bit of a plastic tub. And I started digging down and down. I found a whole pond. Unbelievable. No idea at the end of my garden. Anyway, we're not here to talk about my crazy archaeology in the garden. Yeah, so they are on a tea break. The FTC, and they'll probably come back now. Did I see the rumor that Sony won't share PS6 details with Activision if the deal goes through? Yes, I did see the rumor. And interestingly enough, you begin to see now, and we'll come to it in the FTC Microsoft case, why Sony had the wibbly wobblies about this deal. That's proper business legal talk, the wibbly wobblies. No, why they were so concerned about Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard. And we'll come to it and we'll see, and Call of Duty. So in a way, you can see where that rumor, they could say, oh, we don't want, because Activision will just, Activision will be part of Microsoft and they'll be allowed under their developer kit agreement to share that information with Xbox. I mean, it would be a pretty difficult agreement to put together to say that you can't share information with your owner. Most agreements there that have an NDA in it, allow you to share it with your subsidiaries because you don't know how you might restructure your company. So you can understand from Sony's point of view, when the dev kits go out, or information about the dev kits, and they want to get it out early, especially, as we'll come to it, to Activision and Call of Duty. They would normally want to get the dev kits out to them earlier because they need, as was highlighted in the FTC Microsoft case today, they absolutely need, they consider Call of Duty an essential title, especially on the launch of a new console. So you would want to get your dev kits out and information about your new, 11th generation, 10th generation console to a developer of the major game that you want to make sure is on your platform on launch. But what if that developer and publisher is owned by your console rival? You can see where there's a kind of a bit of a conflict there. So it's very interesting. It's like Sony Final Stand. Neil J's been playing Outward every week for 10 years, 10 hours minimum. Wow. Aliens does look great. I'm not a sort of... I like the cinematics. Just the gameplay I'm a bit iffy about. Wow, Internet of Games. Everyone round Internet of Games house. He's firing up the 4090. Woo! Not messing about. Poor old Jerome's having right old problems with his cloud. Never mind. Extraction doesn't show up as a Steam game, but Ubisoft only. Well, Peter, it might be... there's sometimes delays. And also, let me just check the... There might be a date on it. Let me check the press release. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just check the press release from Dominic. Oh, it hasn't got a date on it, so that assumes normally when it hasn't got a date on it, it means it should be up there. So it should already be on Steam. I'm going to have a look on the Steam right now. Yeah, maybe there's a delay in putting it on. I don't know, Peter. Sometimes you get that. Sometimes there's a delay. I could check the Discord. NVIDIA Discord and see if there's an issue. The games they announce sometimes take a few days to appear. Exactly, Neil. Yeah, they do sometimes. The Microsoft CMA interrogation over today. The evidence pack will be available to read later, and they'll pick it up again tomorrow. Good to know. Hey, Jerry, how are you? Good to see you. Oh, it's only two. One of them's a pack, then, yeah? One of them was a pack. So it looks like it's a go. Epic. Oh, good. That's okay. Well, I'm claiming that then. I claim these games even I don't play them, but I love a bargain. I love a bargain, and it's not as though it's taking up space. Do you know what I mean? That's the beauty of cloud gaming. It's not taking up my space. It's taking up Epic Store or Steam space and GeForce Now space. It's also featured in the GFN deal section. Excellent. Good stuff. Good to know. Thank you, guys, for being on it. Dear Ferrari, Aston Martin here. Please send over your F1 engine blueprint for next season. Thanks in advance. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. If my lights start fluttering, yeah, flickering, it's because of Internet of Games firing up his 4090, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's happening. Right, let's get to... the power of AI to help us look at some of the things that have been talked about. So here we are. I've asked AI. So The Verge here. I have been listening to the case. I closed it down. It was on Zoom earlier. But the FTC... Sorry. The Verge have been running this. Let me clear that. We know what it was about. We know, yeah, about firing up the 4090. The Verge have been running a sort of a minute-by-minute update of what's going on. And we'll look at this in more detail. But basically what I've done is I've taken this... good old Tom here is listening in like I was and been summarizing some of the key points. What I've done is I've asked ChatGPT to summarize here. Analyze the following article. Summarize any references to NVIDIA or GeForce Now or cloud gaming. So hopefully I've captured most of the key points relative to the GeForce Now Thursday chat. So relative to this show, ladies and gentlemen. So one interesting thing here, cloud gaming is highlighted as a separate market, but Microsoft considers it a feature and delivery mechanism at the moment. Microsoft has ambition to expand cloud gaming, we know that, reaching billions of players through a dedicated Xbox mobile store. Okay, that's interesting. So they are looking to expand the cloud gaming through an Xbox mobile store. So when they buy Activision Blizzard King, as it is, and they've got the King side of it, and they open a mobile store, they'll also offer xCloud through that. Is that what they're saying? That's very interesting. We always said, oddly enough, they're being about Stadia. You know, Google Play, you know, delivers like $48 billion a year to Google or something crazy, some figure like that. I seem to remember back in the day, Google Play delivered $48 billion a year to Google, obviously. And you would have thought that kind of marketing leverage, the amount of people that had Google Play and played games via Google Play, albeit mobile games, if you'd leveraged that and stuck on, you know, Stadia and gave access to, you know, all the cloud games via Stadia, sort of, you know, combined it in with Google Play, that would have been really powerful. If that's what basically Xbox are trying to, you know, are saying they're planning to do, their ambitions to expand cloud gaming by streaming its Xbox games to iOS and Android, we know that, reaching billions of players through a dedicated Xbox mobile store. That's very interesting. But in relation to NVIDIA, back in 2019 here, Xbox Matt Booty expressed strong disapproval of NVIDIA putting Microsoft's game on GeForce Now without its permission. So once we remember that, you know, you could play virtually any PC games on GeForce Now when it was in its beta form. And then when they went public, you started seeing the big publishers, EA's, Take-Two's, take the games off. Yeah, they weren't happy with it because they were saying, we never really gave you permission. And now this is a public offering. We're not sure about it. And Microsoft was one of those. And Matt Booty was quite forthright about it. And a bit of swearing, I believe. And we'll come to the actual thing. He was saying, you know, F that. They're not having our games on a competing cloud gaming platform. No, we're taking our Xbox PC games off NVIDIA right now. We're not having them with, you know, we're not having them on a competing cloud gaming service. That would be ridiculous. I wonder what changed their mind. This led to a recommendation in a 2021 email to Xbox Phil Spencer that Bethesda games be pulled from NVIDIA's GeForce Now shortly after the acquisition. So as soon as Microsoft acquired ZeniMax Bethesda, Matt Booty saying, right, all those Bethesda games that might be on GeForce Now, get them off. Get them off now. We are not having them competing with xCloud. Booty stated that all Xbox Game Studio titles had been pulled from GeForce Now to avoid competition with xCloud. Cut to 2023, and the threat of their Activision Blizzard deal being kiboshed because it's a threat to cloud gaming competition market, etc., blah, blah, blah. Microsoft, more recently, Microsoft has signed a deal with NVIDIA to bring its Xbox PC games to GeForce Now, aiming to appease regulators like the FTC. So we know exactly why they did it. And, you know, there's no harm in doing that. I think some of the questioning I heard was in a way that, oh, you wouldn't have done this if you weren't threatened, if the deal wasn't threatened. And you know what? Probably, no, they wouldn't have. But they have. So what's the issue? That's my kind of point. In a way, surely that's the purpose of the FTC, the CMA, whatever, is to challenge these things. And if you get a better outcome for the consumer, as has been the case, by making the challenge that it's a threat to competition, as I said, as has been the case, and that causes the company to go, no, look, we'll present some remedies for you. We'll do a deal with NVIDIA GeForce Now, yeah? We'll do that deal, the same deal that we completely didn't want to do. We basically do the complete opposite of what we did a year previous, 18 months previous, when we took all our games off NVIDIA GeForce because it was a threat to xCloud. But if you're worried about our overall Activision Blizzard deal being a threat to competition, to show you that we mean no harm, we'll do those deals with NVIDIA GeForce Now and Boosteroid, Ubitus, EE, all of that, which is what they've done. So, yeah, it's quite interesting that Matt Booty was very strong about not allowing Bethesda games, and if they hadn't been challenged about an Xbox PC games, and they hadn't been challenged about the Activision Blizzard deal, and that had just gone through, yeah, and they didn't have to present any remedies, you can bet your bottom dollar that Call of Duty would not be coming to NVIDIA GeForce Now. However, given the challenges made by various competition and market authorities around the world, Sarah Booty confirms that new Xbox and Activision Blizzard games, I wrote this down, that's what's in my notes here. Sarah Bond confirmed, I was listening to the case, that new Xbox and Activision Blizzard games will be available day one on GeForce Now and Boosteroid, yeah? So basically, Call of Duty would be available on day one on GeForce Now as part of this deal. Which is what makes me think, I've said it before, that whilst we're seeing a very slow trickle of Xbox games onto GeForce Now, that's more a technical issue. So I was distracted. Silver Dragon's in the house. Shout out to Silver Dragon. Thank you for keeping us informed there. Just stopping by for a quick moment. We're onboarding the other games first because they're new to the service. We're in the process of onboarding. There we go. You see? So all the people concerned, there's an order in which these things are happening. These things take time. And NVIDIA, they've all been on a jolly at NVIDIA. They've all had this. I don't know what the holiday's for. It's a company holiday. That's quite nice. Do you all go away on holiday together? Like all the NVIDIA staff, they get on the coach. Back in the 50s and 60s, like in the UK, the big factories, they used to have an away day. Everybody on the coach, and they go to Blackpool. As you see old films about it. Is that what NVIDIA do? They all get on the coach, go to the seaside, roll up their trouser legs and have a paddle in the sea. NVIDIA's had a holiday last week, I believe, so that's maybe some delays there. But anyway, thank you for the update, Silver Dragon, there. Much appreciated. Right. So, where were we? Yes. So, I think, and this is just my understanding, I have not have any inside information on this or whatever, but my belief is, in principle, we're seeing a trickle of games at the moment, and it is frustrating, is because there's an onboarding process. It takes time. They want to get the connection with the Microsoft store, the Xbox PC sort of store thing up and running. But I think once the thing is up and running, yeah, and flowing and working like a seamless oiled engine, I believe that the aspiration is that as games are new on Steam, and they come to GeForce Now, as games are new to Ubisoft, new Ubisoft comes straight to GeForce Now. I think the same is true of the Xbox and Activision Blizzard games. And that's certainly what Sarah Bond actually sort of said. It was, she was challenged. Would somebody be able to play Call of Duty on GeForce Now and other cloud gaming platforms on, the new GeForce on day one? And she sort of said, yeah, that's the idea, basically. So there you go. That kind of underlines my idea. And again, it's only my kind of belief that that's what's trying to be. That's where both companies are trying to get to, so that these, the games come day and date. There'd be no reason why you wouldn't want them day and date, unless there's a very specific exclusive arrangement. But otherwise, I think the idea is for them to be day and date, subject to the technicalities of getting them onboarded, manpower, woman power, and all that to get it done, and the connection with the Xbox PC arrangement. So there we go. Back to GPT. Matt Booty explained his earlier insistence on removing Microsoft games from GeForce Now. He was frustrated at Nvidia because there were no clear deals in place with Nvidia for use of their IP, and Nvidia was putting games onto their service in some cases without Microsoft's permission. Which is, as we understand it, and it wasn't just exclusive to Microsoft. It was it was, as I said, nearly all PC games were available to play on GeForce Now during its beta run, and none of these publishers really minded. But once it went public, there was this frustration and concern, as demonstrated by Matt Booty, that there were no clear deals in place for the use of their IP. It's not just about the games, it's about the IP. Do you have permission to exploit that IP on your platform? Yeah, whether it's a PC cloud gaming platform or not, do you have that permission? And interestingly enough, the FTC plans to call on 2 Nvidia executives, I wonder who they'll be, to testify about cloud gaming and how the company has overcome technical limitations and latency. Nvidia initially opposed the transaction between Microsoft and Activision and Blizzard. Oh, what changed their mind? Oh, but after signing one of the side deals, they ended up supporting it. Quelle surprise. But there we are, you see. This is the competition authority boards, the FTC, the CMA, doing their job around the world, making sure that consumers don't lose out. And I think that, the competition market authorities around the world can sort of say, yeah, we achieved something. We did achieve something. But we can approve the deal, and at the same time, they can say, but we got something out of it for the consumer. They're there to sort of protect and represent the consumer from competition, from unfair competition practices and all of that. And I think if they ultimately do approve the deal, the UK CMA and the FTC, or Microsoft wins its case against the FTC, then I think at least the FTC and the CMA can go, well, we forced, and Europe, who have approved the deal, can say we were responsible for forcing Microsoft and Activision Blizzard to give the consumer a better deal than they would have had we not challenged this deal. Because clearly, from Xbox Matt Booty's position in 2019, if this deal had gone through without a challenge, there'd be no incentive for them to bring the games to GeForce Now, really. So, where they, good on them. I think Microsoft always classed Stadia and Luna as the main rivals. With Stadia gone, Luna is the only true cloud platform. I think you're right, Suarez. It's interesting because a lawyer challenged Sarah Bond of Xbox. Was Stadia a competition console? And she sort of said, no, it's not. Wasn't a console. It's different. And she's sort of right, but in simple terms, Stadia was a console in the sky, and Luna to a certain degree, although it's closer to being a PC, although there are things you have to change, it's not on the same level as Stadia in terms of being a complete separate sort of console operating system type thing in the cloud. Luna is as close as we've got, whereas GeForce Now is literally, PC servers. They're running the native PC games effectively. Internet of Games says Miss Bond did confirm that a player owner does not require a Windows license to stream a Microsoft game. Yes, I that was just before they went for a break, and that was interesting because one of the concerns that the UK CMA raised, clearly similar sort of angle that the FTC lawyer was trying to get at, is that give the games, allow GeForce Now and Boostroid and whatnot to have access to the Xbox PC games. That's great, fine. But it's much bigger than that, Microsoft. This is UK CMA's concern. Because to power cloud gaming, you need a massive cloud structure. Yeah, infrastructure, a cloud infrastructure. Who has the second largest cloud infrastructure in the world? Microsoft. Yeah. To play a lot of PC games, you need Windows to play them. So you need a Windows license. Who owns Windows? Microsoft. Yeah. So those are the sort of the concerns that Microsoft has all these things in the vertical. They've got the games, they've got the console, they've got the platform, they've got the Windows license, they've got the infrastructure. The company runs the infrastructure, the global infrastructure. That is anti-competitive when you have the whole vertical, as they call it, the whole kit and caboodle, all stages of it. But so you could see the lawyer was challenging in a way, or was hoping that Microsoft, in this case, Xbox, Miss Bond, would say, yeah, you've got to have a Windows license to play Xbox PC games on the cloud, effectively. And of course you don't. If you've got the GeForce Now app, you don't need a Windows license to stream a Microsoft game. So that torpedoed that argument a little bit, I would say. The Windows license, to a certain degree, is less of an argument against them now, because you don't need a Windows license to be able to play Windows PC games via GeForce Now. You can effectively buy the games via Steam. You never have to download them, so you're never going to play them natively, arguably. You could just stream them via GeForce Now without the need for a Windows license. You don't need a Windows license necessarily to download the GeForce Now app, and ultimately you could play it via the browser. You don't need a license, so you can play it on the Chromebook. You don't have a Windows license on a Chromebook, you play it on a Mac. You don't have a Windows license on a Mac. So the argument that that particular vertical is an issue, that particular element that Microsoft own Microsoft Windows, and PC players of PC games need Microsoft Windows, not on the or not to stream, as the case is here, as highlighted by Internet of Games. There we go. Thank you to ChatGPT. We can ask any questions about that. Interestingly enough, that when I came into the conversation, Activision, this is and I wonder whether this probably triggered the deal. Activision refused. Just going to go into the studio a minute because bright lights. Activision initially refused to do a deal with Microsoft to the Xbox Series X for Call of Duty. They threatened not to do a deal unless Microsoft changed their revenue split. So in the case, it was saying roughly the revenue split is 70-30, yeah? So they sell an Xbox game, Activision gets 70%, and Xbox get 30%. And that's a pretty standard model. And even when I was in the games industry, it was roughly that, 70-30, 75-25, round about that point. That's pretty standard. Yeah, 30%. We see it in other things. We see it with Google and Apple and stuff like that. That revenue sort of split, it's quite common. But Activision went, nah, mate. We want more. Because we know how important Call of Duty is to have on a brand new console. And guess what? We've just done a deal with Sony, yeah? And they've offered us a better revenue share. So what are you going to do about that, Microsoft, yeah? What are you going to do about that, Xbox? We know you want Call of Duty. It's an important title to have on your launch console, your Xbox Series X, yeah? We're not gonna sign your developer kit. We're not gonna do it until you agree to a better revenue share with us, just like we've got with Sony. Xbox didn't have the choice. Ultimately, they signed that deal and they gave a better revenue share. So you can imagine. I bet they were livid. No wonder I tell you what. You don't treat me like that, Activision Blizzard. Yeah, I'm gonna buy you, and then it'll be, who's your daddy now? Yeah, who's your daddy now? That's what it'll be. That's what spurred on. I don't care how much it costs. 70 billion, pay it. I'm not being treated like that. Threatened with Call of Duty. Right, we're buying the company. 70 billion, cough it up. Yeah, but that was because, and now, in a way, Sony put that pressure on them by agreeing to do the deal. Not only that, Sony had exclusive marketing rights to Call of Duty, which meant that Xbox, as with these things, with these exclusive marketing rights, Xbox couldn't mention Call of Duty in, say, their showcase. Their big showcase, and also coming, they couldn't really show it on the showcase. They couldn't, they put it on their Twitter and stuff like that. But there were loads of places they couldn't do marketing specifically about Call of Duty being available on Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S because of the exclusive marketing deal that Sony had with Activision Blizzard for Call of Duty. This all came out. It all came out. So Activision forced Microsoft into a new Call of Duty revenue deal. Now, Sarah Bond was also challenged about Call of Duty coming to, on Steam. And they prepared a contract. She signed the contract. She gave the contract to Steam, guaranteeing Valve, Call of Duty will guarantee Call of Duty will be available on Valve, so on Steam basically, available to buy via Steam for 10 years, guaranteed. And Valve basically said, it's all right. It's all right, bruh. It's all right, bruh. We believe you. Yeah? We believe you. We don't have to sign it. We don't need any agreements, man. It's the way we rock and roll. We believe you. We don't need to sign no agreements, man. We trust you. So Valve didn't sign the agreement. Valve believes strongly that content should be, because their principle, this is Valve's principle, according to Sarah Bond of Microsoft, Xbox, Valve strongly believed strongly that content should be on their platform, and they do not want to be seen to be signing contracts that lock up or drive commitments to content over 10-year periods of time. They don't have any other such agreements. They told us they had no need to sign the agreement and that they believed us that we would continue to provide it to Steam. Basically, as soon as the Activision Blizzard deal was announced, Xbox basically contacted all their partners and went, don't worry, Call of Duty, there's no change. Yeah, your deals with Activision Blizzard and all of that, there's no change. You're still going to get the games. Call of Duty is still coming to Sony, all of that. So when challenged about why they entered all these deals for Call of Duty, the Xbox PC games, Activision Blizzard games, and all of that, when challenged why they suddenly entered it, is the way that Sarah Bond put it, is that they decided to follow up their words with action. Yeah. So they went and they contacted all their big partners, reassured them that this is not going to change any deals they might have with Activision, that these other companies partners might already have with Activision Blizzard. And then they followed that up by entering into deals with those partners a little bit later. Probably not, probably thanks to the pressure from the various competition and markets authorities around the world. It's interesting, so Microsoft agreed to an 80-20 revenue split for Xbox games. For Activision Blizzard, this is. Why? Because they believed it was critical to get that content. Now, interestingly enough here, and this relates to them not wanting their Xbox PC games, originally not wanting them on NVIDIA GeForce Now because they saw it a threat to Xbox. Microsoft was working to offer xCloud separately, like a standalone SKU. We talked about it before. So you don't need an Xbox. You don't need Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. It would be a specific, you buy xCloud on its own, a separate, what they call a separate SKU. Like a sales unit, a separate thing that you would buy. They were planning that standalone Xbox offering, like GeForce Now. Standalone, you just get the app, you subscribe, you get access to the games. Yeah. You can still do that, but the point is it's wrapped in, obviously, it's aimed specifically at console players and it's an added on extra. But they were working on it separately. But now, Sarah Bond says, that was what they were asked about in September 22. But she says, but Microsoft has... so Tom's commenting here. Microsoft has strangely changed its mind, perhaps thanks to regulatory concerns around cloud gaming. Ms. Bond says Microsoft's strategy has changed since September. I wonder why. And the company has been analysing usage. Operational costs are higher, and Microsoft has made deals with partners that offer similar cloud gaming services. Microsoft previously promised that Xbox Cloud Gaming would support your existing library by the end of 2022. So, the idea of a standalone SKU doesn't seem to be, and it just seems to xCloud now definitely seems to be relegated to be just a supplementary service to the Xbox ecosystem, arguably in the same way that PS Now is really a sort of relegated supplementary service to PlayStation. Whereas there was a time when I think they were really looking at making xCloud, and I hate to say it, but the proverbial Netflix of cloud gaming, Next week we get Satya Nadella in the courtroom. Interesting. Right. Well, those are all the kind of NVIDIA GeForce Now references that I thought I'd share with you. Let me just see if I saved any interesting... Oh, yes. Slightly Xbox related, but this is NVIDIA related as well. Talking of exclusives. So a lot of the games that we were talking about, you know, guaranteed they were coming, you know, Call of Duty deals and all of that, were about existing, you know, this is about Microsoft continuing, confirming existing arrangements with Activision Blizzard. Obviously, new games are different. So, it's been confirmed here that Bethesda's Indiana Jones game is exclusive to Xbox and PC. Now, Clive, this is a GeForce Now show. I know. But exclusive to Xbox PC Store, which means, under the new deals and terms, Indiana Jones should, no guarantees in life, Indiana Jones should be coming to GeForce Now, courtesy of the Microsoft NVIDIA deal to bring all Xbox PC games to GeForce Now. So there we go. It will be exclusive to Xbox and PC games in the way that Starfield will hopefully eventually come to GeForce Now, and Redfall and all of those. But Indiana Jones. Bethesda's upcoming Indiana Jones will be exclusive to Xbox and PC, Peter Hines, Bethesda's head of global publishing, said. And he confirmed the exclusivity during the FTC Microsoft case today. Indiana Jones will also be available day one on Xbox Game Pass. So, following that principle through to the announcement that we had last week about Xbox Games Pass, Xbox PC Game Pass games coming to GeForce Now, you know, once the app is up and running, in principle, in theory, okay, no guarantees, I'm not allowed to say definitely, but in principle, if you've got Xbox Game Pass and GeForce Now, you should be able to play Indiana Jones on GeForce Now. Yay! The game was originally announced in 2021, months before Microsoft finalized its $7.5 billion deal. Pittance. That's like 10% of what they're paying for Activision Blizzard. Crazy, isn't it? To acquire ZeniMax Media. Indiana Jones is being developed by Machine Games, the studio behind Wolfenstein. All we've had is a teaser trailer. No details of when it will ship or what platforms. Originally, FTC counsel revealed that Disney had a contract for multiple consoles and that deal was amended after Microsoft Bethesda's acquisition to Xbox consoles. So by the sound of thing, it was going to be coming to Sony. PlayStation. Not anymore. Asked why Microsoft had changed Indiana Jones to an Xbox exclusive, Hines explained, Bethesda liked the idea of removing the risk of game developer and bringing it to Xbox Game Pass, i.e. guaranteed money. Ka-ching. The primary one, in my view, is that I said about reducing risk and trying to get a degree of certainty, said Hines. You're dealing with a licensor who's going to have a ton of feedback on what you're making and add a lot of time to your schedule. So there we go. You heard it here first. I'm saying it now. Yeah. Indiana Jones, when it's released, day one, GeForce Now. Turn up all the settings in GeForce Now Ultimate, and you're off. Ladies and gentlemen, you're off. Check out the chat. Yeah, so that's what we discovered, wasn't it? Miss Bond. When Sarah Bond entered the stand, did they all turn round and go, "Ah, we've been expecting you, Miss Bond"? That joke there. I had to do it. It's a modern O.J. Simpson trial, kind of. These authorities are here for consumers, Xbox and consumers too. Although the way some Xbox commentators go after me, you think the CMA are trying to... Exactly. There's a bit of kind of overzealousness. Like if it was a different scenario, if as consumers, like if you weren't in the Xbox ecosystem and there was potentially a threat to, you know, something that you enjoyed, you'd be grateful that there are these, you know, if it impacted on your life, if you know, and some big behemoth came in and bought up all the businesses that your business was in, you'd be grateful that there is the CMA and the FTC around to help the consumer. But arguably, equally, sometimes it's politicized. Like the FTC, no, not the FTC, oddly enough, but the SEC, the Security and Exchange Committee, the SEC, anyway, went after crypto in the US. And that is like 100% political because they want control of crypto. The US government want control of crypto. So, yeah, the raison d'etre is to the benefit of the consumer, but sometimes it can be, you know, politicized. But if you're affected, you are grateful. Showing your age, yeah. No, it's just newsreels. Newsreels I've seen where everybody, and old films, old comedy films, where they, you know, the factory used to have an away day and they all get on the coach and go to Blackpool. Didn't they have a deal, Amazon Luna? No, I don't think they did in the end. Ah, Internet Game saying Amazon balked at it and turned them down. I don't think they offered it to them, which is odd. But maybe they saw Luna, as I say, more of a console-y, albeit a virtual console threat. Yes. Miss Bond chose to change the narrative today and scoffed at Stadium's competitor. Yeah. It was interesting as well, and I know Internet Games, you made some reference to it on Twitter. She's saying that she was challenged about whether, you know, that she'd said previously that there were some issues with cloud gaming in terms of latency and stuff like that. And she was asked, is she concerned about issues of latency with NVIDIA in terms of how it presents the games, you know, their Xbox PC games? Does she have concern about, you know, how their games will come across in terms of issues around latency and that on GeForce Now? And I was expecting her to go around. I tell you, I was expecting Miss Sarah Bond to go around and go and say, I tell you what, mate, have you tried GeForce Now Ultimate? It's amazing. Right? But then I remembered she worked for Xbox, so she can hardly say that. Oh, yeah, xCloud can be, you know, xCloud's all right. It works, and when it works, it's pretty good, but it can have its moments. But have you tried that GeForce Now Ultimate? It's amazing. She wasn't going to say that, so she goes, she said something like, I don't have enough analytical data to be able to answer that question properly. I thought, no, you've played, you know, something, you know, you played Apex Legends on GeForce Now Ultimate, and you've gone, no, you've played Cyberpunk 2077 on GeForce Now Ultimate, and you've gone, oh my God, this is amazing. But you can't say that because it would undermine xCloud. You play on Android too. Exactly. You don't need Windows on that. Exactly. We Love Trump are still getting Flight Sim. That's all that matters. Yeah, you should be getting Flight Sim. And of course, Flight Simulator 2024 is not just a sort of reiteration of the old Flight. It's built from the ground up. So yeah, hit those likes indeed. Miss Bond also claimed xCloud does not use Azure, that it uses console hardware and it's losing money compared to local consoles. The deal is more important to xCloud, Microsoft. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, they don't use Azure because Azure, as such, I would put it like this. They don't use Azure, but they do use Azure. Yeah. Do they use Microsoft Azure is a cloud infrastructure platform that's sort of, Windowsy based, I guess. And that's what they offer companies around the world. Does xCloud run off that? No. But do they probably use the same infrastructure in terms of the connections, the node points and all of that? Don't know the technical term, but you know what I mean. Yes. Have they created separate servers that run, effectively Xbox Series X consoles in layers to run these games? Yes. And that's not the same as Azure. Yeah, that's not what's powering Azure. But the infrastructure is probably the same. They're using the same infrastructure, if not the same servers that they specifically offer to other companies. So I think it's a bit of a sort of misleading question. They've still got the wires. They've still got the underwater sea cables, yeah, that powers Microsoft Azure. I think they use those. This is a quote from Microsoft by Tom, but it's a quote that precedes today's hearing. Microsoft opened a massive window to Sony launch a standalone clone game with AMD, AWS, or even Azure. Yeah. Sony are just a bit slow. We've said it before. They're just a bit slow off the mark. Maybe that, Sony just don't think cloud gaming's where it needs to be. Not enough people have a brilliant experience. I mean, poor old Jerome today in the chat having issues. Thing is my goat about the FTC and CMA. I tell you what grinds my gears, says Gandhara, is that they think Microsoft should pay $70 billion cash but not expect to gain any benefits, such as making exclusive to their platform. Yeah. I mean, you could, Microsoft's argument could say, yeah, we're spending $70 billion. Of course, we expect some value back from that. And we're going to be making some stuff exclusive. Duh. That's why we're paying $70 billion. But ultimately, the FTC, the CMA have got to go, yeah, but that's fine. But is the benefit so great that it undermines competition? And that's the judgment that they have to make. Internet of Games, he's got his wise words here now. The truth in biz is that the legacy brands never do excel in the revolution. WH Smith aren't Amazon. No, Royal Mail aren't Gmail, and Xbox and Sony are unlikely to be the daddies. I see what you mean, yeah. No, exactly. Exactly. I was talking to my son, who's meant to be work shadowing me. I work from home. For his school project. He's work shadowing me. So I thought, well, I better educate him to what I do. And so I explained to him about the principle behind the creation of the BBC and why it's funded, why it is, and why that upsets some people, but the importance of why it's funded, why it is. And part of the reason I was explaining to him historically is that once the technology of radio, because that's where it stemmed from, back in the 20s, 1922, effectively, was when the BBC started. But there was a genuine concern that this new technology of being able to transmit and talk to millions of people around the world, yeah, through one device, any one person having control of that technology, yeah, could be a real threat. This is back in the 20s. Yeah, that was really considered. And that something so powerful and so important shouldn't be left to the market. Yeah, a tool like this radio, the ability to communicate to millions of people, should be used to benefit the people. And Lord Reith, the founding sort of Director General of the BBC in 1922, effectively said that the BBC should be set up, a corporation should be set up to ensure that this new technology informs, educates, and entertains. Yeah? They were the important factors. Because without regulation, if you just leave it to the market, it just entertains and it dumbs us all down. That's the sort of basic notion. And so and it was essential that everybody had access to it. Yeah? And that's what the BBC license fee is, in exchange for a license fee, the government say, the BBC, you must make your service available to everybody in the UK and serve everybody in the UK. Now, that's a difficult task. I'm not going to get into the politics of that, but that's the principle about it, okay? And it's considered a vital part of life in the same that water, yeah? Water used to be run by a corporation. It was state-owned because it's an essential part of society. Having free access to clean water. Telephone services were state-owned and set up by a corporation, were run by a corporation, incorporated by the government, or given corporation status by the government, because it's an essential requirement. Shouldn't be in the hands of one people. The trains were state-owned because this should not be run by private interests. It should be available to the people. Now, this isn't socialism. This is just sort of general being, making sure that people have access to everyday facilities. Now, enter Thatcher and Reaganomics, yeah, and Reagan and Thatcher especially, but in this country. And she said, well, tell you what, the government is terribly inefficient at running the water companies. Yeah, it's very inefficient. The post office, as was then, is very inefficient at running telecommunications. British Gas, as was then, state-owned, very inefficient. You can't, the government is inefficient. It is much better to give it to private companies to run, because private companies are brilliant at making things run efficiently. And you kind of get the logic of that. You go, yeah, tell you what, the government is pretty rubbish at running things, but private companies would do a great job. The only problem with that, as it turns out, is that a state-owned company, the primary purpose of that company is to serve the public. A corporation, its primary purpose is to serve the public. Once you privatize it, as what happened in the 80s, with all good intentions, not really, but let's not get into the politics of it, but all good intentions for the business to be run more efficiently and therefore the consumers, the public, to benefit by reduced prices and a better service. I'm all for that. Negated to mention the fact that the primary purpose of a private company is to the shareholders. Yeah? And so you start doing things which benefit the shareholders and not necessarily the consumers. My point is the same as the internet. Like, imagine if, so what I was saying to him is, imagine if the internet had not been like effectively open source. Yeah. Old Tim Berners-Lee hadn't sort of said, this is for everybody. Yeah. The internet, normally in that circumstance, if that not had happened, it would be run by the bells of this world, yeah, by BT. The internet would not have grown or become the thing it is today, all the good and all the bad. Yeah, imagine if the internet was just like Sky Satellite, or was satellite TV, cable TV. Imagine if that's what the internet was, and it was run by BT or Bell in America. Yeah, by these big companies. It wouldn't be what it is today. It wouldn't have expanded. It wouldn't have created all these companies. Now, ironically enough, because the internet was basically free and open source and available to everybody, as pointed out in here, you've got, over the last 15, 20, you've got these massive brand new companies which have become so big off this new technology that to any new kids coming up, they are the new behemoths, the new BTs, the new Bells, the new, Enrons, all of that of now. And that's your Googles, your Amazons, your Facebooks, your Netflix, etc. But yeah, there we go. Mini lecture, welcome to my TED talk. So yeah, that was kind of a long way around of basically saying, yes, you're quite right. Cloud gaming could well be run or owned by, although it may be difficult to see now, who else? I mean, Google, Google had a good, did they have a good go? No. We hoped that Google would have a good go and be that company that was a non-gaming brand company that was at the forefront of a brand new world of gaming in the cloud and that became the dominant force. Didn't quite happen. But I did think at the time, if anybody could, it would be Google. So although it's hard to see now anybody else than Xbox and Sony becoming dominant in the cloud gaming space, as Internet of Games quite rightly points out here, there is a whole history. Bell and BT weren't the big brands of the internet world. Yeah, well, you could imagine everybody would have thought were Nokia. Yeah, massive brand. Nokia phone brand. You weren't, Nokia was the Apple. You had to have was the iPhone. Absolutely, you had to have a Nokia. Nokia was you got. You haven't got a Nokia, you've got a Sony. Although I did have a Sony little phone, a Sony 45 T45, it was called. That was the only non-Nokia phone I had before Android and all that kind of stuff. Every new phone I had was Nokia. Until I dabbled with the Sony T45, I think it was called, because it had a color screen and was tiny and cute. But yeah, so who knows who will be the cloud gaming king in a world when we literally don't need consoles, or consoles serve a different purpose. Who knows what consoles will be doing or delivering us in 10 years' time. I don't think consoles will go away because I think they'll become more powerful, so they'll be able to do crazier things. Is there a point? Is there like a, what's the word, like a vanishing point? No. At which point the speed and the power of cloud is so great that it overcomes and surpasses having a box, however powerful, in your room? Is there a singularity? Yeah, is there a singularity at which that becomes a thing? Who knows? Who knows? Interesting question. But not for a while. 5, 10 years, maybe 10 years' time. Could we see a point where the console cannot offer us something better than the cloud can offer us? Latency is negligent. No, there's no comparison between the two, and therefore the power of the cloud will always, the servers, the machine sending you the stuff will always be more powerful than a console. The only thing that makes the console better is that if you have internet problems, well, to a certain degree, it's okay. And maybe around the latency issue for some people. But is there a point where that is negated totally? Who knows? I want you to go away and think about that. That feels like a real TED lecture. Who knows where my shows go? You don't get entertainment like this or kind of deep thought like this on any other show, I tell you. Get discussions and conversations, but not big TED lectures like this, free. I hadn't planned to do a TED lecture today, but you've got one, ladies and gentlemen. You've got one. And on that bombshell, as they say, I want to thank you, everybody who's watched live, commented, joined in. Have I missed loads of comments? No, we're all good up to date on the comments by the looks of things. I want to thank you all for joining me live tonight. It means a lot to me. It's good to see loads of people in the chat as ever. It's good to see people watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the likes and all of that. Have a wonderful, wonderful, there we are. In the UK, a corporation is a legal entity effectively bestowed with rights of a living being. Interesting. Somebody once asked me, you know, like, what's your limited company name for the BBC? And I thought, actually, no, number, company number. I thought, wait a minute, we don't have a company number. Why is that? So all this time I had to go and research it, even though I'm a lawyer for them. Very good talk. And Microsoft's only other folks playing down cloud gaming, holding it back. Not the SMEs, graduates and visionaries now, exactly. Cheaper local storage gets and the faster internet download speeds. The less important cloud gaming will be. Things like graphic fidelity aside. Well, what I'm wondering is whether there'll be a singularity. And it might not be for 10 years, in which that becomes negated, Gandhara. Who knows? Anyway, thank you for watching. I just wanted to catch up on the comments in the chat there. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I shall be continuing with much delight to listening to the Microsoft FTC, the FTC Microsoft case. And of course, we'll be going big on it on the Xbox Monday Night Chat. So make sure, because I'm sure there'll be loads of big revelations out by then, lots of news. I have a funny feeling the Xbox Monday Night Chat is going to be massive. So make sure you tune in Monday night, UK time, 10 p.m. for that. Otherwise, I'll see you at the same time, same place, right here next week. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. I love you guys. You're amazing. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Tell everybody about the TED Lecture and all of that. And everybody watching a little bit later, thank you as well. It's much appreciated. Cheers.